everyone. This is Josh here. We are doing another episode of Horror Hangouts, episode 19, actually. It's hard to believe that's been that many. Tonight, returning to the Horror Hangouts is Lee Roselle. How are you doing, Lee?
Just dandy. I'm feeling fantastic, Josh. I recently just got back from KillerCon and have a special KillerCon shirt that I'm so proud. I met Judith Sonnet and Jeff Strand and met Jeff Burke as well, and that was a treat. And a great number of extreme authors, extreme horror authors, and splatterpunk authors. And I showed up. Didn't really know that this was that my stuff was either one of those, but I went and had a good time at KillerCon. So if you're ever around that area, I suggest you go, and it's great. It's a lot of fun too.
Excellent. Where was that held down in? That was in Austin. Where was that? Was
Yes,
that held at a hotel or?
it was held at the Holiday Inn Town Lake, which was perfectly. It's down right where those a dozen
Mhm.
skyscrapers are being built right now, but also right there at the lakefront where you could walk out and then go out to restaurants and stuff like that. So it was a nice combination of sort of walks and listening to people read crazy stuff and good food and the pulse of Austin. I'd never really been there, and all the stuff they say about Austin is definitely true. Looking for excuses to get back out there. I drove all the way, spent a night in Waco, and had a blast. And so it was a real treat. But I'm a little threadbare after KillerCon. It'll get you, So
Yeah, cons are just so much fun to do, no matter if they're a big one or a smaller one. So was that like an all weekend thing, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday
yeah,
event
definitely.
then?
And it was intimate enough to where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just in this. I mean, I I met so many sort of famed, Brian Keene, et
Hmm.
cetera, like all kinds of writers are just sort of walking by and you actually get to talk to them. So it wasn't like one of these humongous events where you're standing in line with a plastic, thing on, waiting to take your picture with somebody. It was quite, informal and fun.
Yeah, I've been lucky so far. The few ones that I've gone to have not been, they've been busy, but not too super busy to where, you know, it's like you're crushed in like a sardine can or something like that, to where
Mhm.
you have enough time to talk with the celebrities and talk to some of the vendors and the other authors that are
Yeah.
there. So, yeah, they're always fun. And I guess there's going to be, I just saw another YouTube channel. I think it's like and they're just doing it for one day. I think it's like the first Saturday of September. There's going to be a new horror con in San Antonio, which of course right
Oh,
down the road
cool.
from Austin.
Cool.
And they had the guy on there, and he was talking about how he's getting started because they have other conventions there in the San Antonio area, but they don't have one specifically for horror. So it's just like kind of a brand new thing they're trying to get started. So hopefully that one's successful. That might be one I might also try and get to maybe next year, if anything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of the people there were brandishing their ghoulish books paraphernalia
Mm-hmm.
from San Antonio, and so that would be something that I would definitely want to get in. I've got a list on my little whiteboard here. Send Ghoulish a copy of my book and beg them to put it on their shelves for a little while. So
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. I was envious of all the Ghoulish swag that was there. I figured I would see them there and do my pitch, but there, I didn't see a book, a table for Ghoulie. So, but maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe. Well, that's fun. So, I guess, well, first one topic we're going to talk about, and this is one that you were wanting to talk about, and that is this little studio that started about roughly whatever late '80s, early '90s. Chances are you've seen their movies and probably didn't even realize it, but we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about Full Moon Features. So I'll
Yeah.
let you take it away about Full Moon Features.
Full Moon Features. I mean, first of all, I have to say that because I am a big H.P. Lovecraft fan, I'm also a Stuart Gordon fan. Stuart Gordon is a director who, like during the 80s and 90s, came out. They basically did with Lovecraft what Corman did with Edgar Allan Poe,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like Reanimator. Okay, this was a little bit before Full Moon. It was Empire Pictures, but Empire Pictures was also run by the same guy, Charles Band. I do believe his name. Isn't that right? I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, Charles Band, who, basically, I think made a bunch of money, bought a castle, bought a studio, and then became something else. But basically, during that time, in Empire Pictures and Full Moon Features, Reanimator, like I said, From Beyond, right? Dagon, which is based on Shadow over Innsmouth, not Dagon. Castle Freak,
Right.
Which is twisted and and just really hard to watch in a really beautiful way. Now those films, they, I mean, I think a couple of them were just like I think Castle Freak went straight to video, which is like ridiculous given the quality of, and it was also, I think, when they were in between studios or something and they didn't have any budget or whatever, and so it didn't get the promotion or the fanfare that Stuart Gordon deserved. Okay, so basically, this started off for me as like, what did Stuart Gordon do? And I realized, like, in 2023, that this same company created a movie called The Resonator that was based on From Beyond, that machine that does all that weird stuff. It's so gross. They're still kind of in play with Lovecraft and Stuart Gordon, and I just found it really fascinating. So I'm like, okay, who is this guy? Who is Charles Band? What did he do? And so I came up with an idea, and you may have seen this on the Slasher app. I was trying to like do every week a sort of a movie blurb or something on one of these Full Moon Features, just to explore it and do that. Well, after The Ginger Dead Man and Evil Bong Part 2 and Killjoy, or some of the, I'm not going to Killjoy. But basically, after some of those, I found myself crumpled and confused. So, so I still want to get to the heart of Empire and Full Moon Features, right? And I guess my real question is, where does Charles Band and Full Moon Features and these other companies, where do they fit in the pantheon of horror movies, right? When you start listing them, you're like, wait a minute. Oh yeah. And that one. But for everyone that kicks some serious keister, you have, you have something that makes you take a step back and say, do you have to be stoned to enjoy this movie? So, I mean, is it a requirement that, should they give you gummies instead of popcorn when you walk into the theater? So that's my question. Like, what about the Puppet Master movies? right?
Right.
I mean,
Subspecies is another one too.
subspecies, part 1, part 2, part 3, part
However many they've
45,
got now.
that, yeah, and that vampire is famous as hell. What's his name? Radu or whatever his name is.
Something like that. Yeah, it's been a while
Yeah,
since I've seen the first one anyway. So yeah,
yeah.
creepy looking. He's kind of like got the part Nosferatu type of style vampire, I guess is the way you would go with that. But then he has his brother who's good and looks all normal and stuff. But
Yeah. So what do you, obviously you like those better than the Puppet Master type features. Puppet Master 3, I think, rises to, like, people talk Puppet Master 3 all the time. I'm about to go back and watch it, but I'm researching and looking at this, and I'm like, what is the fixation of Puppet Master? I have no idea. I mean, I have not deigned to watch that one yet. However, I did like the first one. I don't know. Do you watch any of those Puppet Master features?
I've only seen like the first one actually, and that had to be, well, ironically enough, I probably watch it where a lot of these movies were shown. That's on USA Up All Night. These were the type of movies that would occasionally show up on that channel.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you what, I was like looking through before we started I was like looking through the list of movies that they had done, and my favorite one actually is another H.P. Lovecraft adaptation called Lurking Fear. And I don't know if you've seen that.
Is that a Full Moon or Empire feature? Okay.
It's a Full Moon from 1994, and that's one of those dumb, campy movies that if I want to just shut my mind off and just enjoy myself for 80, 90 minutes, that's my go-to. And then on top of that, you have Jeffrey Combs and Ashley Lawrence in it, who are, by the way, the only two actors that are even trying to act. You could tell they're the only ones that give a shit about what they're doing, because everyone else in that movie is just hamming it up on purpose, and they're like the only ones that are trying, and they essentially carry that movie. But
they're dicks, they're dicks.
Yeah, they're like they're trying their best to like carry this movie, and everyone else is just fucking off basically. But it's a fun movie. It's like one of those, I'm not gonna. It's one of those movies had like maybe just a little bit more of a budget.
Yeah.
It could have been really good because it needed to be gorier than what it was, but they were limited with their money and whatnot, I'm sure. And
right.
Like I said, well, at least you had two cast members that gave a damn. But
and they're so good. I love them. And some of these movies are called not B films but Z films. And you can tell like there's this prominent in some of these movies brick wall that's just like brick, and there's like it's obviously like in an old gym or something, and they like film in that corner of the wall, like when Killjoy goes into the dream world, he's still in front of that same damn brick wall he was in the scene where he was, and so it's like you try to suspend disbelief, but it can only go so far without narcotics,
No. Well, and to answer your question about where Full Moon belongs, I guess in the pantheon of horror, the thing about horror, we know this, there's room for everything. And they were basically the go-to. They would have been huge on Tubi if a thing like Tubi existed. If there was straight to streaming, which we don't. I mean, our younger people watching won't know what we're talking about when we say straight to video. What it means is sometime around the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of low budget movies, particularly horror films, would just go straight. Studios didn't have the money for the distribution or whatever it was. They would just go straight to video or straight to cable television.
Vestron, right? Or New World, whatever. You see that Vestron logo or that New World logo, and this baby might well be a clinker. You see that, or it's like it's going to be one of those like they just didn't understand how wonderful this and edgy this damn movie is. It's like when I saw that Vestron and New World, I'm like, ooh, It's it's thin ice. But you're talking about Puppet Master, demonic toys, and
Right.
then these that I don't even see it. The Doll Man. What is this guy got about these little puppets? I mean, these are.
He,
I mean, if nothing else, I mean, I've seen like Twilight Zone episodes. I've also seen other, but this guy has taken that kind of creepy. Stephen King wrote a couple of stories and they're made into like little sub features with little soldiers or or monkeys or Trilogy of Terror or something like that.
right.
But these guys are the masters, obviously, of that. They nailed it. I mean, they're still making those Puppet Master movies.
Oh yeah.
What is it about those little homunculi or robots? Oh, also Amicus did one in Asylum, I think. Was that
Yeah, I think
Asylum
so.
where the little guy's coming up behind? I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those, but basically, what is it about this sort of sub genre of the little toys? I mean, what's the fear there?
My guess is this guy who runs the studio has a deep fear of toys and dolls. And he was probably getting people, I want you to make a movie about this or something like that. Maybe it's as simple
Type
as that.
of
It's like,
therapy or
what
something
is
like that.
what is Quentin Tarantino's big infatuation with feet? I don't know, but it's like every movie has to have someone's feet in it. Or a reference to feet. And this guy might have the same thing for little dolls. I don't know. But
It's a strange subgenre of horror, but a big one. I mean,
yeah.
demonic toys. I have not even jumped into those, but the covers of those films, the older ones, are really compelling and edgy. I love it. I mean, and also Full Moon Features kind of came on. I mean, they did some great stuff, but kind of came onto the scene in a very productive way in the 90s, like when there was this huge vacuum of it was like grunge was taking over the new film style.
Right.
It looked from the 80s and 90s. I thought it sucked. I just thought, there was nothing really going on in the 90s in horror compared to previous generations and then what was going to come later. But when you put Stuart Gordon in there, you're like, wait a minute, the 90s had a lot to offer, and Full Moon Features and Empire Pictures or whatever amalgamation of those, I think this guy Charles Band really did some stuff that goes way beyond Z features to me and deserves I think a little bit more scrutiny, and then you watch the Ginger Dead Man and then you're like, what the, I mean, yeah, bullshit.
It's almost like they were like just seeing whatever throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what would stick and what wouldn't stick almost. But I'll say this, if anything, you missed the 90s, you did kind of have not as many horror movies were being made. There were some good ones being made, but not a lot. So if anything, what that studio did was basically kind of keep the genre kind of going in a way. It probably gave a lot of opportunities to a lot of small independent filmmakers who otherwise wouldn't have gotten a shot in the big major studios. It kept actors working. Like I said, it gave Jeffrey Combs something to do, and other actors like that gave them something to do until they get something else. So in a lot of ways, it was like, yeah, it's not the quality that we were getting, say, overall, we weren't getting quality that maybe we got in the 80s and the 70s, but you know what? It was something to keep us afloat until the next wave of movies come out, or till your till your James Wan's came out, your Rob Zombies came out, it was like just kind of waiting, or
all kinds of zombies came out. Zombies came back, I mean, in films during that period, like horror films, there were some big budget movies, but they all either were operas or they were too much sort of action movies. It sort of stretched out into like move too far into action or move. No, hey, I like Blade. I mean, I'm not
Right.
knocking it, but it was like that kind of thing. It started
Mhm.
moving out of that sort of smaller, gut wrenching,
Mhm.
don't look down in the basement type thing, and became this, more sort of postmodern kind of sort of montage of styles.
Right. Well, and what it was too, you had a lot of them. A lot of these movies were, and you saw a lot of this in the early mid '90s. You had these big studio movies that were being marketed more as mysteries or suspense thrillers. And I'm talking like a movie like, and it's interesting we're bringing this up because I just watched a YouTube channel earlier talking about this earlier in the week. Movies like Hand Rocks the Cradle or Single White Female, they have horror elements to it, but they don't want to call it horror. I mean, they were even hesitant
The
to call it
Good
silent.
Son, right?
Right.
It's
Or
just,
even,
I love that shit. Every one of those movies you
yeah.
talked about, they
Mhm.
didn't fit into that category, but they were better than the movies that were big studio movies that were claiming to be quote unquote horror movies.
Right.
Which is fair enough. There was some good stuff coming through then. I don't know exactly when The Good Son came out, but I think it was in the 90s. I don't know.
Yeah, right about then. But I'll tell you another. I mean, talk about the good stuff. You want to talk about a killer kid movie where there's two of them. One is really campy, and that's called Bloody Birthday. That came out in the early '80s.
Got to write it down here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just
Taking notes.
plain stupid. And then the other one is called Mikey, which came out about '92, and that one's a little bit more darker, but though at times it gets campy. But that, like, if you remember the kid who played the youngest son in Family Ties, he was on like the last couple seasons. He plays the killer kid, and he's a creepy little bastard. I can tell you, it'll make you never want to adopt anybody ever again.
Donnie
Right.
Darko, kind
Yeah.
of fits within that and does some interesting stuff, but yeah. So I guess my last question about this, and I'm curious to see what people think and how people categorize these films, is like, looking into the future, will Charles Band of Full Moon Features fame ever be on the B movie Mount Rushmore with the likes of Roger Corman, William Castle, and Herschel Gordon Lewis, those guys? I mean, what will we think about this particular mogul in the future? Because there are enough stuff from the Empire Pictures period to garner my critical interest,
Well, I don't think. Well, no one. I don't know if anyone will ever hit the Roger Corman level, but I think when people really stop and look, especially those of us that are heavily in the horror genre, and maybe we already do, we just don't think about it as much as we should. I think, yeah, he will be up into that if he isn't already. Into that Mount Rushmore. I mean, I kind of think Corman's standing on top of the mountain right now, and then you have like the ones you mentioned earlier are right below him, and I think they're all in that same category of being like just right under Corman, because like I said, no one's going to touch him, but they're right there behind him. They, a lot of ways, I'm sure they were all inspired by Roger Corman in one shape or form, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that ability to keep producing these types of vehicles that you like, is it good? But damn, I'm gonna watch it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And there's something about that style, that sort of wildness of filmmaking that can create a serious dud, but can also give a director or a production team with real edge, little guy named Francis Ford Coppola, right? People like that, a chance to like put it out there. And that's kind of what's exciting to me, so.
Yeah, if anything, we kind of need more of it because there are people out there making small films. I'll have someone on in a couple of weeks who made one that he just put out on YouTube, on his YouTube channel. And I'm like, if that's the type of movie that, and it's actually a pretty good movie given budget, that's the type of movie that if Full Moon Features would see that, would get that distributed. And that's what I mean about giving these directors a chance to show their
Mhm.
stuff, and screenwriters too, for that matter. And oftentimes they're one and the same. That's why we need more. If anything, we need more Full Moon Features. We need more Roger Cormans out there.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Cool. Yeah, and if people are watching this later, send us a note. Tell us which Full Moon feature film strikes you and why, and I will go watch it because I'm still at the tip of the iceberg here. I have, after a couple, sort of lost my way, but I'm ready to give Full Moon Features another gander, definitely. Or I'll just go back and watch the Stuart Gordon films again, which is a month
Yeah.
of
Oh,
quality.
another one too. I was just looking on the list. They also did Trancers.
Oh yeah, all those. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
like looking, see
seriously,
what else did they do? They made 4 of
exactly.
those, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And even the ones I haven't heard about, there are 3 of them. So, I mean, just the subspecies
Oh,
sort
yeah.
of franchise alone is enough to make you give it a double take, and some of the cinematography of these films that were like some of them in Romania and in these castles, they provide a kind of a set
Mhm.
that I don't, I so enjoy those Italian horror films from the
Oh,
70s
yeah.
that are just like in these beautiful castles, and the film
Even in
quality is
the
so bad.
60s too.
Yeah, 60s, mostly in the 60s,
Mhm.
and just, the dubbing is weird, but it's like this is really worth more attention than it gets, in my opinion, so.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, yeah, hopefully, I think in time, things always, people will always start looking back, eventually we're still looking back at the 70s and 80s with, um, nostalgia,
Mhm.
obviously. I think eventually maybe we'll start looking at that era in the 90s with Full Moon Features and Empire, and start looking at those movies hopefully in the same way if we haven't already started a little bit.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
because those of us who remember, yeah, those are the type of movies that would be shown either on Cinemax late at night or on
Mhm.
USA up all night. Those
Right.
were the type of movies they'd be showing. Those type of movies that Gilbert Gottfried would like host or whatever he did back then.
Or you're,
Um,
for me, like a country kid in Alabama, you go to the video store and it's sort of stuck between 2 or 3 VHS, and like, I've never heard of this shit, but it sure looks crazy. Let's get it.
I'll have to go back and look over. I'm wondering if Joe Bob Briggs has done. I'm sure he's hosted at least some of these. I'm for sure. I know he's done Reanimator, so I'm pretty sure he's probably has brought these to light on, Last Drive-In, I'm sure. So,
Mhm. Cool.
yeah, Full Moon Features, people, go ahead and leave your comments about your thoughts on that and your favorite movies from there
Mhm.
for sure. So, anyhow, my topic, and I was like thinking of what I wanted to talk about, and I didn't want to just talk about the usual stuff. So I decided to go, which so far we're doing good because no one hardly ever talks about Full Moon Features. So now I'm going to talk about a movie that's becoming my favorite every time I watch it, and that's the movie Possession, which came out in 1981. I first watched this movie probably about a year and a half ago, and I've seen it a few times since, and it is probably one of the most bizarre horror movies you're going to see. This movie was actually banned in the UK for being too, I guess, disturbing, because it's not. I mean, it's gory, but it's not. Well, there's one really bad one really gory scene in it, but it's not every other scene being gory. It was actually heavily edited when it was first released here in the United States. It wasn't a huge success. It's one of those movies that became a cult classic over the course of the years. Um, it was probably probably one of Sam Neill's first probably one of his bigger roles, because I think it's right before he did The Omen 3. And he's been quoted as saying that doing Possession was without a doubt the most intense movie he ever made. And the actress, and of course he plays a character. Well, let me first start off just talk a little bit about what the movie's about. Basically, his character Mark is a West German agent. Keep in mind, this is during the Cold War. It's set in Berlin, Germany. So you still have the wall up, and there's still a West Germany and East Germany. And he comes home, and his wife, played by French actress Isabelle Adjani, who incidentally won Best Actress for this movie in the Cannes Film Festival. Thought that was always cool when someone in the horror genre wins an award, because it happens so rarely. She wants to leave him, so he thinks it's another man, and she makes it sound like it is. And as the movie progresses more and more, we find out it's even worse than that, basically. But what's so weird, this is like a marriage drama with just the craziest supernatural horror stuff you could come up with thrown into everything. And it's really like these two characters, you really kind of feel for them, because they have this love-hate relationship with each other. Because on one minute, Sam Neill's going ballistic all over. The next minute, they're having sex on the kitchen floor after they've taken turns cutting each other with one of those electric knives. And it's just the most bizarre thing. And of course, what ends up happening, she goes to this secret empty apartment building where there's this creature, spoiler alert, that she's basically having sex with. But at the same time, this creature is slowly generating itself into basically a doppelganger of her husband. And she herself has a doppelganger out there that we think, because they have a little boy and he has a teacher who looks just like his wife. And he's like, what is going on? And it's never explained whether she's a doppelganger or just a coincidence, but the ending kind of makes you think that maybe this was the whole plan all along. But go ahead.
Hard. Yeah, I mean, I've never seen a person mentally collapse and go nuts like, not that one scene, right, in that long corridor, which is the most, it's like one of the top scenes of just like, what the hell I've ever witnessed, right? I mean, there are other scenes there that show these people going to the brink emotionally. And it's like, I believe them, because you understand, if you've been married, how one person's actions will affect another person's actions to the point to where, and it's like, he wants to control her so bad, and he wants to have things the way that they were, and it's not going to be that way for whatever reason, but she still loves him. I mean, it's like, it's really
eventually he progresses to the point to where he almost accepts what she's doing, even after he finds out what's really going on, and he almost becomes her accomplice. And the whole thing is like, okay, if this is what you want to do, let's do. And he even kills that one guy, her first lover. He pretty much kills him in the bathroom and leaves him drowned in the toilet or whatever. And
that foppish German dude with the motorcycles and stuff. Yeah, he was a nut. I mean, his acting was completely over the top. It's know. What the hell, dude? And I loved him. I mean, he was
Yeah,
great. But I'm
it
like,
fit the movie. That's the thing, at first glance you would think everyone's acting is so over the top. I think Sam Neill and Isabel Johnny's performances might be two of the best performances in any horror movie I've ever seen. Yes,
yeah,
at times it's over the top, but it's supposed to be. You
yeah.
could tell they didn't just play these characters, they became these characters.
And it wasn't done with the tongue in the cheek. It wasn't
No.
done. It was done cold. That's what
Mhm.
really makes it all. Like that's what makes it such a success. Is that
Mhm.
we're looking at this and we're going, geez, but they're in that world and they're like completely serious. It's
Mhm.
very intense. It's such drama and pathos. And at the same time, it's like, what the hell is that on that mattress over there?
Yeah, it's just
Ah,
thrown in there and it's interesting the writer director and I'm going to butcher his name, but Andrzej Zalowski, he incidentally wrote this script and he co-wrote it, and I can't remember who co-wrote it with, while he was going through a divorce himself. So this obviously was him expressing that and getting
whew.
that out there.
If it
But
was anything at all close to that film, I feel for that poor guy.
I doubt it, but it was probably obviously exaggerated, but it's probably what he felt like or
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm wondering if his wife was messing around with him in the real life, it was some goofy Zen-like German guy or whatever. Because this movie was, by and large, a German production. I think it was a co-German French production, but
Mhm.
most of the actors were German. I mean, Sam Neill's obviously, I think, English, and Isabella Johnny's French, but by and large, it looked like it was filmed predominantly in Germany. I think. I
Mhm.
think the director is actually Polish, actually, but
Mhm. And
it.
like the bars they use and
Mm-hmm.
the way that the camera looks at street corners and buildings and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it really works. It really works. And it's a mind-blowing film to tell,
Oh yeah,
unusual
you
how.
won't see anything else like that, and then especially the subway scene, which I'm not going to say, but we'll just say it's probably about the most bloodiest, most gut wrenching, intense scene you'll see. And
Milkiest too. There's a lot of milk involved.
yes, yes, and I mean her performance doing that, I can't imagine any other actress playing that role, playing that scene that well. I would struggle to.
No.
Maybe Barbara Steele in her heyday, but that's about it. Is the only
Yeah.
one I could think of. But
Yeah.
and the reason I bring all this up, why I wanted to bring this movie up, hopefully this is just a bad, awful rumor, or maybe I was just having a bad dream. But I saw this on Facebook. They are wanting to remake this.
No.
The person who directed Smile and Robert Pattinson, Twinkle Boy himself, which I should
Well,
say that he's actually a good actor, but I'm like, there's just no way. For starters, American studios do not have a great track record of remaking foreign horror. They just don't, because they try and Americanize it. And as we know, with Possession specifically, is very much a very European film. It's a movie of its time because, like I said, it's during the backdrop of the Cold War while the Berlin Wall is still up. There's just no way I could see anyone doing
no.
it. Maybe
No.
maybe someone in some crazy Italian director could get away with it. Maybe Argento's still alive. Maybe if he didn't throw in a praying
World
mantis,
television.
praying mantis or something. Like think back to Dracula or whatever. But no, I just can't believe they would even think that they could remake this. So it's like, just
Well,
don't.
well, I mean, I'm certain that the directors of the original always love to see these big budget features do it because number one, everybody says they did that with 1/3 of the budget, and oh crap, how much better the original is. So it always refers back to the original. So I'm like, go for it. I'll watch it whenever it's on, like that first week after it doesn't sell. It's on Amazon Prime. Right. I'll watch it, but I'm gonna put down in the notes the originals.
Well, if anything, maybe it'll bring. I mean, the only good thing about that is if people see it and they'll think it's good, and they go, "Oh, this was a remake. Let me watch the original," and they're gonna be like, "Why did they try to remake this?" This is probably what they're gonna. I mean, the only director I could think American director anyway, that could probably pull that off in his prime might be Cronenberg, but that's about as maybe Carpenter, but I don't think he would even try. I don't think either one of them would even want to try it. To be
Cronenberg would take that last few scenes in that other empty apartment and turn it into the whole movie, which would make it not the movie that it is.
Right. So, yeah. So, anyway, to those who have not seen Possession, I believe it's still on Shudder, and I think it's also streaming on Tubi. So it's still out there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on Shudder or AMC Plus. You can find it on Amazon someplace, and it's worth the watch. Just prepare to A, not have a happy ending, and B, I mean, you could take maybe some psychedelics. Maybe you'll understand it better. I still don't entirely understand everything that happens in the movie. Because we don't know what the exact goal is for this creature, and I don't think we even care at by the end. It's like it just does what it does, I suppose. So
well, all of the relationship stuff had already like twisted me in so many knots, and I was just like, so okay, put a globby monster on there. I don't care. I'm already wounded enough,
Exactly. So yeah, that's Possession. So yeah, if those of you who have seen Possession, leave some comments down below. And also, let's give our nod to Full Moon Features for sure. So, Lee, is there anything else you'd like to add? Any mention? I know you've got Backwaters out, trying to get that promoted.
Yeah, I mean, I am going, and I think I'm reading at BizarroCon, which is is in November, so that's a long time, but I'm very excited about that. And I'm also going to the Mississippi Book Fest and the Louisiana Book Fest, and I'm just sitting along with the people on sort of Skid Row selling my book. So would be more than excited to talk to somebody from down south who is interested in the book. I'll give you a special deal, I promise. So
yeah, so touch anyone living in those areas, if you're live nearby, stop in and say hi to Lee. So but that's going to be it for our show tonight, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Lee, for joining us once again.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for inviting me again. It's always a treat. It's always fun. And hopefully one day we'll get to hang out in like real life. That would be awesome.
Maybe we can meet in Austin. I think I'm about a 9-hour drive from Austin. You're probably about 10 or 12, I'm guessing. So maybe we can somehow converge on there. And I think there's a few slashers that live in the Austin area as well. So
cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, good night, and we'll see you next time.